It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. You're born who you are. You change what you have to. You're born who you are. You can change if you have to. You're born who you are. You must change 'cause you want to. It's time to focus on your dreams. Put them off so long, they're there but can't be seen. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. Let's step up our game a bit and use those things we quit and laugh and smile and say we're lucky to be alive. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. So you're bringing it, the start of the year. You know you got nothing but cheer. Your family and your friends, they are so proud of you. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. You're born who you are. You change what you have to. You're born who you are. You can change if you have to. You're born who you are. You must change 'cause you want to. It's time to focus on your dreams. Put them off so long, they're there but can't be seen. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. Let's step up our game a bit and use those things we quit and laugh and smile and say we're lucky to be alive. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. So you're bringing it, the start of the year. You know you got nothing but cheer. Your family and friends, they are so proud of
To our Sunday morning Lyceum here at the Andrew Jackson Davis building. Welcome for what is today, January the 3rd. Our speaker today is a longtime resident and member, certified healer, certified medium, and has a lot of wisdom to share with you this morning. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Trish Smith.
Good morning, and Happy New Year to everyone. Lots of blessings for everyone this year. Try and get over what we went through previously. But change is empowering, and if you think of the pioneers of spiritualism, the type of change they were empowering with everyone, and the courage they must have had. Emanuel Swedenborg was born in 1688, about 40 years after the Reformation. Now the churches were still in uproar because Protestantism came about from Martin Luther leaving the Catholic Church and printing the Bible in common speak at that time in German. So things were still divided. And here comes someone of Swedenborg's knowledge and inventiveness. That's what he was well known for. He was an inventor, a scientist. He also considered himself a modern philosopher for the day. And he was interested in everything. Back then he was finding correlations in nature and studying the brain and the anatomy of human, origins and so forth as much as he could. And he started going into trance and meditating. That was kind of a new thing back then. In fact, it wasn't until 30 years after he was born that Franz Mesmer was born. And that's the early name for hypnotism. That's when trance really started opening up. Because we had these new thinkers, and that's what they were called. They were called new thinkers. And spiritualism was primarily founded by the new thinkers and the Mesmers. Again, the early hypnotists. And as Swedenborg got more and more into the meditations and trance states, one day in his 40s, he said he was visited by Christ. And Christ said to him that he had to stop writing strictly about science and studying more about the real religion, the real reason there is a creation and why we're here. So Swedenborg started studying the Kabbalah because the Kabbalah had information on the law of correspondences and so forth that many of you might have already studied here because it is a natural law. And that was one thing that Swedenborg was known for, is he started writing about the correspondences in nature and man and planets and how everything went together. So can you imagine back then telling people, oh, we don't really die. The energy's still alive. Can you imagine in the early 1700s what kind of reaction that kind of statement made? It probably shocked a lot of people. It shocks a lot of people now. So can you imagine 300 years ago what it was like? So they were real pioneers, and it must have been a scary time. A lot of people thought, oh, they must be atheists. Well, they believed in a higher power. They just knew more about the connectedness that that higher power was in everything, and that we also imbue part of that creative energy. We are all connected, and we're connected to everything in creation, and that we needed to recognize that. So he went on to study more, and as he was growing, so was Mesmer. Mesmer was known not only for bringing people into higher spiritual trances so they could also learn and grow on a spiritual level, connect to their higher power, connect to their guides and angels to learn more, but he was also known for getting 100 or more people together and having them hold hands and bringing them into a trance state for healing. And it worked. Now, what building were you in? The Andrew Jackson Davis building. Andrew Jackson Davis, who was pretty much illiterate, came from a very poor family. His father was an alcoholic, and in between jobs quite frequently. So as a little boy, he was constantly out of school because they were moving frequently. Then as he got a little older, he said to his father, "We have to move to Poughkeepsie." Now, I haven't been able to find out why he needed to pick Poughkeepsie, but that's what he urged his father. And finally his father said, "Okay, we'll do that." And Andrew Jackson Davis got an internship or an apprenticeship and helped keep the family afloat. Well, he ended up being called the Poughkeepsie Seer because he started going into trance and he started going into the hypnosis, and it found out that he had a very special gift where he'd go into a trance state and he'd be able to find out the medical issues with individuals. Now, who else could do that? Much later, Edgar Cayce. So these gentlemen, and I'm sure there was a lot of women too, but you don't see them in history books too much. But the history of spiritualism is fascinating at how these individuals really went out on a limb and they strove to learn everything they could. So here, Andrew Jackson Davis became so acclaimed in how he was able to learn. He ended up really getting a medical degree. Here, someone who is illiterate learned that much, and most of it was through his trance state. And he channeled this medical information that healed numerous people. And like Edgar Cayce, who also had a very similar lifestyle, except he was told by angels to put books under his pillow. And he absorbed that way. I tried that. It didn't work for me, though. They didn't tell me to try it. I was going, well, maybe if I show that one, maybe they'll let me learn that way too. But no, they made me learn the hard way. But he also has like a 75% proven rate of his trance state transcripts where he said, okay, you have this issue, do this, and it was accurate. The reason it's not higher than 75%, which is pretty amazing, is because they couldn't find all the people because they were transitory and they didn't stay around or leave any forwarding addresses or anything. But these individuals, if you've ever seen some of the old pictures of the materialization that they drew up in the seances and so forth, They were fearless. They would sit for weeks and weeks and weeks in circles, coming by 2-3 times a week to sit in a circle for a couple of hours to build the energy so that someone could come through for the seances and help show them through the physical phenomena how things were done and give them that information. Now we're not doing it as much. And I'm wondering if we, just like COVID caused us to do now this year, change how we're doing things. I wonder if that's what's happening in the spiritual world, where the physical phenomena isn't coming through as much because we need to go about it a different way. But back hundreds of years ago, people shared information. It's like Swedenborg studied the Kabbalah. I've only scratched the surface on the Kabbalah because it's so intense, it's so diverse, but it's a wealth of knowledge. And that's another thing. If you look at the comparative religions, all religions have some truth. A lot of it gets misconstrued by mankind, though. So if you look at, they all have a word for God. There's 78 names for God. There's a golden rule in all the major religions. But if you look at the other things like the natural laws, then you understand that we are the same. There are comparative laws and rules that we can learn from and grow from. Just as these pioneers who strive so strongly, we too can find our way by learning from other cultures, other religions, and find out a broader sense of what there is in our universe. There are many gifts out there, and everyone has their own gifts. But what if, just by not researching, you're missing out on a wealth of gifts? What could you possibly learn that is going to imbue you with more strength, more understanding, more love, that you can use to make your life better and those around you? And that's what these pioneers did. They had that knowledge that they garnered and they shared. So we should always remember them and remember all those that come before us, because we can always learn. We shouldn't forget history, not because we don't want to repeat it, but also because there's a wealth of knowledge that we quite often sweep under the rug, and that's a shame. Because can you imagine the devotion and the years of dedication that it took for those pioneers to bring forth this information for us now? So what do you want in your future? How much are you willing to dedicate? Can you dedicate time to meditate every day? I have so many clients that say, oh, I don't have time to meditate. So I encourage people to start out with mini meditations. Just focus on your breathing for a few minutes at a time. Do it 2 or 3 times a day. Everybody can fit in 2 minutes at a time. You could be waiting for coffee to perk. Focus on your breathing. Then get acclimated to it. Give yourself the privilege and the opportunity to balance your energies, because everything's energy. And if you wonder why problems are happening, just step back and look. Are you out of balance? Have you been focusing too much on getting things done and not enough on appreciating things as well? So appreciate you. Appreciate what you have your surroundings, and appreciate your guides and angels. Appreciate the love that you have given to you each and every day, and allow that heart chakra to open up and connect with the mind. And then you will see that your path smooths open, and that many gifts will be forthcoming because you're more connected. So be like the pioneers. Be your own pioneer, a modern pioneer, because they call that modern spiritualism. But this could be like the super neo-modern spiritualism. And it needs to happen. People need to say, okay, I'm corrected. I'm connected, and I deserve to receive that love. Everyone does. Because we're all part of creation, and no one person's more special than another. And I think my time's up, isn't it?
You have more to say? Keep going.
You have like 4 minutes?
Until 10:15. 10:10, 10:15.
Oh, okay. It's been a while since I've done a Lyceum. One thing that I thought was fascinating by Swedenborg and Andrew Jackson Davis is the amount of dedication and focus they put on learning. And it just really is so interesting that someone can focus so much and allow that information to come through. And I'm sure it didn't happen overnight. Now, with Swedenborg, he was already a scientist, so he was used to focusing. But with Andrew Jackson Davis, it was like this inner drive. He knew he had to do something even as a small child, but he wasn't quite sure. So he learned by following his intuition and then following the information he received in meditations. So think about it. Who's your favorite pioneer? How much have you taken the time to understand who you are? These are little questions that we all should wonder about. Who am I? What do I want to emulate? What do I want to learn? What's going on with my life? What do I want to improve on? What are my goals? And then think about what else you want to learn and achieve on your spiritual path, your personal path, your career path, whatever it is. Because you're many aspects of a person. It's not just man, woman, mother, daughter, father, child, whatever your title is. You're more than that. There are many aspects of you, and all of them need to be recognized. All of them need to be nurtured. Have you heard about the shadow self? That's the aspect of our personalities that comes through when we're in survival mode or something. The shadow self comes through and kind of dictates to us. And at times it's coming through and it's giving us fear-based information. But then when we learn to get out of survival mode, then we can tell the shadow self, hey, thanks, you did a great job for me, but I'm going this way now. Quite often we'll hear that aspect of our subconscious come through when we're trying to meditate. That's why our meditations fail quite often. The monkey mind comes through. That's the subconscious. They want to maintain control. Well, no. I'm doing this now, so I thank you, but I'll talk to you later. And we can keep pushing that later back. Retrain our body. There's that correspondence again. And I encourage you to learn the laws of nature, spiritual laws, because it'll help you understand why things happen. But our body has a reaction when certain things happen. And then the subconscious notes that reaction. So when we have a similar thing occurring, then the subconscious comes through. So we retrain it. And that's something that Swedenborg learned about the law of correspondences, not only with the anatomy in the brain, but also planetary. If any of you have read anything by Louise Hay, her You Can Heal Your Life, she had in there how certain illnesses were caused by certain emotional situations. And all illness is caused by emotion, because we tend to block that chakra. But like in the Kabbalah, Swedenborg also noted that there is a planetary aspect that comes into play during those times. Unfortunately, I didn't read it in depth, so I can't go any further on that. But I do encourage you to try and learn these different areas that spiritualism is based on, because spiritualism is based on natural law. And the pioneers really worked hard and made a wonderful foundation for us, but it's not done. We still need to build and allow it to grow and prosper. And that comes from our personal responsibility, because each individual is responsible for their own growth and their own actions and inactions. And when we allow ourselves to grow, we're allowing all mankind to grow. Does anybody have any questions? I've been talking nonstop here. Okay. You do? Okay, great.
So autopilot, if I'm understanding, autopilot is a trance, right? But that's based, is that based on fear from the subconscious? And how do we snap ourselves out of it?
Okay. We have an auto reaction, a reflex reaction, when certain things occur in our life. Let's say we had a violent situation, and quite often you'll feel gut reactions, but you also may, clench your fists or something of that nature. The brain takes that in. The brain kind of makes an imprint. Oh, when that situation happens, she must do this, and we must do this. So anytime after that, any similar situation occurs, the brain, the subconscious, is going to react in that manner. So we have to learn, okay, I'm not in that situation now. So it's okay. I can be calm and I can heal from that. I don't have to be in fear mode anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Edgar Cayce, also like Andrew Jackson Davis, would go into trance state and give phenomenal information on healing. And the two of them were kind of magnetic healers in that regard. They never had to meet the person. The person didn't have to be in the room with them. It was all through trance, and the person could be anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world, more than likely. And very detailed information. They didn't have to know anything about the person ahead of time. There'd just be a request, and they didn't see that. The facilitator who was in the room with them had the piece of paper. And Andrew Jackson Davis and Edgar Casey both would go into trance states, and then they go, okay, it's a woman, da-da-da-da-da, this is the problem, da-da-da-da, and this is what you have to do. And everything was so precise in both instances for Andrew Jackson Davis and Edgar Casey. Exceedingly rare ability, and it's amazing that someone could get into that amount of depth in a trance state to get that information and be so accurate with it. So we, like I said, we all have our own gifts, and we all need to focus and find out what that is. It's not something you do overnight. It's not something that you're going to do in one meditation. It takes years of study finding out what your gifts are, because you'll learn one gift and then it'll change throughout the years. Years ago, when I first was doing readings, I was in South Florida, and my readings were like movies. I'd get names, dates, and I'd see things. Then I'm here for a while. It's still here. It was still working that way. And then one day, the Reverend Eloise Page, who used to be one of the prominent reverends here, said to me, "Oh, they're going to be changing how you receive information." She says it's going to be symbolically. I said, "What?" She said, "Well, you told them you wanted to keep learning and growing, and you wanted them to challenge you." And I says, "Yes." And she says, "So very soon, it's not going to be anything like you've ever had before." And I says, "They don't have to make it that dramatic. They can kind of gradually do it." Well, 2 weeks later, I was in a reading, and boom, all I saw was symbols. There was nothing that made any connection to how I had been getting readings since I was a kid. I'm going, oh dear. So I'm asking, please tell me what this means. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do this reading? This poor woman is devastated, and she's really looking for help. And I told her what was happening, and she says, "That's okay. I trust you. Go through it." And I'm going, okay. So my guides wouldn't answer me. They made me figure it out. So I learned, just by sheer determination, to touch the symbols and the colors and the energies that I was seeing. And I could feel what they were saying. It was weird. I can't even really explain it. It's just like a knowing came through. And then I had to put the pieces of the puzzle together to give her the reading, because there'd be all these different symbols and colors and energies. So I'd have to touch each one and put it together to make the messages for her. So hopefully you don't have to go through anything as dramatic as that. Hopefully, they tell you to be careful what you ask for. And apparently I wasn't careful enough. So when you realize that you can make changes, you can grow and learn, you will find that they'll bestow this world of knowledge to you. And it's really amazing the things that you can come up with. Years ago, I was in an accident, and at the scene they said there was no way I was going to survive. And I says, no. I says, I'm going to survive, but my legs are shattered. I have compound fractures, so you can't put that on me. And I'm allergic to all pain meds, so you can't give me anything. So they're going, oh boy. So they had me in ICU, and they're going, we can't do anything for you. Why don't you just give up? I says, because I'm not supposed to. I have things that I need to do yet. They're going, but there's no way you can survive, and you will never walk again because there's too much damage. And I says, listen, you don't understand. They're going, we don't understand why you're still alive because you shouldn't have been. And I says, I told you I have things to do. And they're going, well, have you ever heard of the 5 stages of death? And I'm going, listen, I'm not afraid. I know what's going to happen. I says, but you don't understand why I'm still alive. And they're going, yeah, we don't. What are you doing? Because you have to be doing something. We can't even give you pain meds. And I'm going, okay. So I told the orthopedic surgeon, I says, it's like Pac-Man. He goes, what? I says, I get into a high trance state, and they've been showing me inside my veins all these little blood clots and bone shards and stuff. And I have to make sure that I get them all eaten by this Pac-Man that I've created somehow. And he goes, that makes perfect sense. He says, what else do you see? So I told him all about everything that was wrong with me. I can't do this except in a really urgent situation, apparently. But I was given the gift at that time, probably because I said, I'm not going, it's not my time. So they decided to give me something that I could use to help the situation. But I was able to see exactly what had happened and where the bones were, because both legs were shattered and there was internal injuries, and I was able to describe it to them. And he's going, did you see x-rays? And I says, I haven't seen any x-rays. He says, how did you get that kind of info? He says, I've heard about miracles. He says, but this is beyond anything I've seen. He says, you're not even afraid. And I says, no, that's when people get into trouble, when they're afraid. Because then they can't get above the pain. And that's what messes them up. And he goes, okay, can you teach other people? And I says, they have to be willing. And I had that happen with a friend of mine whose son was severely injured. She asked me if I could heal him. And I says, all I am is a tool. So he had been in a coma for 3 months, and the doctor said he would never come out. So I did a healing on him, and during the healing he said, Mom. And the doctor happened to be walking in the room, and he says, can you teach us? And I'm going, okay, I've got to say this again, that you have to be open and willing. You have to want to delve deep. And that's what this is all about, the pioneers and the individual responsibility. Now, is everyone supposed to have incredible situations where they have to go to that level of meditation to bring that trance state that deep? No. It's not in everyone's path where they have to. And it doesn't mean that somebody's path is less than another's. No, everyone is important. Every path is important. Every individual is important. If we were all the same, how boring life would be. It takes more than just a village. It takes a whole world working together and understanding that every culture is important. Every individual in that culture is important. Every animal, every mineral, it's all part of creation. And as long as we maintain ourselves and our continuity and balance, we will recognize that things prosper. We are all our own little universes, and we should treat it with that respect and understanding. When we do that, our lives will be precious. We will be appreciating all that we have, every breath that we take, every person that comes in our path. And we will appreciate ourselves, as so many people don't do. I can always tell when someone is not appreciating of themselves because I see it in their aura. Their self-realization area is weak. I'm going, need to work on that self-realization, don't we? We are all part of this wonderful gift of creation. So I hope you will all appreciate all that you are and all that is in your life. And I think I'm done. They shut up on me finally. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you for being here. I hope that you'll stay for our Sunday morning service, which will commence at 10:30. And thank you all for coming.
And your eyes shining brighter, your heart feeling lighter, and your ego getting smaller, like the loosening of a collar, and your